I must say it's very nice to be in a room full of product marketers. Not every day you sit in a room full of product marketers in this very nebulous world. It's very interesting to hear everyone's presentations and conversations within different industries and different responsibilities, and we all ask the same question: what are we doing? So I ask myself that question every day as a product marketer and working in the domains industry. How did I get into the domains industry? That's a big mystery. So today I'll talk about product marketing in the industry that started all, which is the internet and the domains industry. So a little bit about myself. I am the product marketing manager for the wholesale domains division of Tucows Inc. So I'm responsible for go-to-market, sales enablement, product launches, and in between, long walks on the beach. Also, just a show of hands, who here has a domain name? Perfect. Great lead generation, upsell. That's great. If you have any questions about this presentation, you can email me at dtran@tucows.com, and you can also check us out at tucows.com. So in this presentation, I'll talk to you a little bit about Tucows, the domains industry, and best practices that I found that really works in this type of industry as well. So you're probably thinking, Tucows, the number 2 and the animal cows. So you're right. This is our first logo, 2 cow heads. But Tucows actually stands for the ultimate collection of Winsock software. So we have a very rich history with the internet. We've been around since the early 90s when the internet became a thing. Tucows actually started as a software library. So back in the day where you would sacrifice your computer's health to download that free software, we were a part of that. So back in the day, we worked with a lot of ISPs providing different software. And during the dot-com boom, when the internet became a thing, that's when we started to really pick up and really ramp up the domains industry. So Tucows today. So we are a publicly traded tech company, and there are 2 main focuses of our business. We have the domain side, which is made up of the wholesale side and the retail side, and we also have the telco side called Ting. So Ting provides internet services as well as mobile services throughout the United States. But we do have a strong mission statement that we follow through in our everyday work. We lobby, agitate, and educate to promote and protect an open internet around the world. So that is our mission statement as a company. So the domains industry is very, very complex. It's made up of enforcers, government, technologists, regulators. It's not very simple where you can explain to your grandmother, what do you do? Or what do I do? So this graph actually just breaks down the different layers of the domains industry. At the very top, you have ICANN. So ICANN is the nonprofit governing body of the internet and the domains industry. So they're the ones that come up with the rules and regulations of how a domain name works. We also have below that the registry. So the registry is the entity that owns and operates the actual domain names. So when you see the domain name .com, that's a registry. That's an actual product. And below that is the registrar, which is Tucows. So we actually help with the registration and we resell the domain names from the registry. And below us, we have something we call the resellers, which take domains from us and resell it to the actual consumers, called the registrant. So a domain name from conception to actual consumption actually goes through a very rigorous process. So it's not as simple as buying a .com and then using that domain name for different purposes. So to simplify things, I'm going to use the dairy industry because Tucows. At the very top, you have government. They regulate the production and ingredients of milk or dairy products. You have the farmers. They're the ones with the actual process, the technology to create the actual raw, milk or cheese. And then we work with the wholesaler, like Tucows. So the wholesaler would have a ton of different products and would sell to different stores. like convenience stores, retail stores, which actually connects to the consumers, where you go into a shop and you actually purchase the actual goods. So it's like going into a convenience store. There's tons of different products and different choices, and we're the ones powering the convenience stores with different products. So in this context, I'll use the term reseller, wholesaler, and supplier, just to simplify things. There's also going to be a test on this, so hopefully you guys are taking notes. So the domains industry, there are two main characteristics that make this industry very unique and very challenging as a product marketer. As a product marketer, we have to navigate through the regulations, the technology, the bureaucracy, everything within the domains industry. But there are two things that really make this industry unique. Channel heavy, and it's a very mature industry. So we rely on the different channels within the industry to push our products to the actual consumers. It's a very mature industry because we've been around since the early 90s. So things have been established already. Key players, technology, and innovation is very different in a mature industry because innovation is very slow. And the type of innovation isn't as glamorous as, for example, a startup where they can always try different things. So here are the key takeaways as a product marketer in this type of industry. Enablement is beyond sales. So we've talked about sales enablement, but enablement should be internal and external as well. So every department should be enabled. That includes customer service, sales engineers, product managers, all the different stakeholders within different departments should be enabled. Enablement in this industry requires twice the effort. Because this is a channel industry, we do have to work with the sales team to enable the resellers to sell the products to the actual consumers. So as a product marketer, we have to enable the sales team and the resellers. And then enablement equals empowerment. So everyone within the different channels and the different departments need to be empowered to get the products to the actual consumers. So I do want to show this image of kind of how it works within this industry. So based on this cog, you have the supplier, and then the supplier powers the wholesaler, which is two cows. And then two cows, right there is the PMM. So connected to the PMM is the sales team and the reseller. So you focus here, as a product marketer, we have to enable the sales team effectively. So if we don't give them the right sales tools and materials, they can't enable the resellers. And the resellers cannot push product out without being enabled properly. So as a product marketer, we have to enable the sales team as well as the reseller. So it's double the work for us, unfortunately. But also customer support. That is an example of a department that we also have to help with our enablement as well. So Hover is an example of a reseller. So Hover provides domain names to actual consumers. So this is an example of how we would enable a reseller. So when we have features or new products, we would provide white label materials. So white label materials gives them the ability to slap their logo, change some of the positioning, and repackage it so they can market to the actual consumers as well. So this is an example of a feature that we just launched. So we provided stock images, white label blog posts, just so we are doing the heavy lifting for our resellers. Connect the dots on both sides of the coin. I know we've heard about this early on with the whole Steve Jobs video, but in this industry, we want to be the voice of the channel as well as the customer. So we have to voice the changes that are happening from the top bottom, as well as what's happening to consumers up to ICANN as well. We only connect to what really makes sense. Because the wholesaler is between the supplier and the reseller, we have to channel the information both ways. So let's say the supplier comes up with a brand new product or a product change. We have to take that information and message our resellers and let them know about the change. And vice versa. We can say to the supplier, we notice that there's a demand for a certain product. Can you work with us to come up with better pricing or promotions that we can pass to the reseller as well? And consultative approach goes a long way. So we work with a lot of big resellers to really understand their cycles and their buying process and their funnels as well. So as a product marketer, when we go to market with our new product, adoption doesn't happen on the day of the launch. It actually happens 30 days after the launch, 6 months after the launch. The reason being is because when we provide our resellers with all the marketing materials for a new product, they might have their own schedules, right? So they might launch the product 6 months that works for their schedule. So we have to take that into consideration as well. So this is just a really simple illustration to simply kind of talk about the concept. So for example, we have the supplier, the product marketer, the reseller, and then right on the far left, the market and customer insights. So the PMM is the conduit between the supplier and the reseller. So for example, .nyc, the supplier of that domain name, we sell that to the reseller, and we can work with the resellers, and maybe they'll tell us, hey, in New York City, no one's registering .us anymore. In New York, they're actually registering a lot of .nyc domain names. So we're like, okay, that's really good market insight. We'll take that information, we'll go back to the supplier and say, hey, we need more marketing materials, we need more enablement materials, we need to come up with better promotions and pricing so we can pass that to the actual resellers. So that's just an example of how a product marketer should really be on both sides of the coin and really connect the dots. Shifting traditional thinking. So I love this part of the presentation, just because of the nature of our industry. So everyone knows a .com, right? That is the standard. That's been there for ages. So when you go on a website, you don't want to go to, let's say, a really fishy-looking URL, right? So if you're buying things on Amazon, you don't want to go to amazon.xyz. You want to go to amazon.com. It's legit. So as a product marketer, that's tricky because those domain names are very limited. So if you try to register your name, chances are you can't register it. Someone already has registered. So we start looking for alternatives like duangtran.marketing. Duangtran.marketing, no .com. So as a product marketer, we need to surface the value of different alternatives and different domain names. Also, sometimes the market actually influence the alternatives and the value of the different domain names. So for example, again, .com, it's the gold standard, but as a product marketer, we need to surface other domain names that might provide different value, such as .store, .ninja, .band. These are actual domain names that you can purchase today if your .com isn't there. And what's really interesting is certain domain names actually mean certain things in different geolocations and markets as well. So for example, there's .store and .shop. They're two completely different things. So in the Asian market, .store actually means something physical. So when we see a .store domain, you're thinking they have an actual location within the region. But .shop is a completely different thing in Asia, right? It's the act of doing something. So it depends on the market, and it depends on the geographic location that really gives the value behind the domain names. .io and .co is a really good example of this as well. So .io and .co are something we call CCTLDs. CCTLDs are country-coded domain names. So they are domain names that is specific and special to certain geolocations. So for example, I'm from Canada, so I can register a .ca name. But Americans or people from France, you can't register a .ca name. Same with .us, for example. .io is actually a special domain name for the British Indian Ocean Territory. So if you're from that market, that's the perfect domain name for that area. But in actuality, the way they market this domain name is completely different. It's positioned for tech companies, startups. So when you look at tech companies and startup, .io is very common. And .io actually stands for input-output. So this derived from something way in the past when domain names started to become a thing. Same with .co. You register a .co because .com is taken. And .co is the second legit thing, right? .company, .corporation, whatever the case may be. But .co is actually a CCTLD for Colombia. So the way they market these domain names are very interesting. They have different perceptions depending on the market as well as the product. Lastly, some things are just beyond your control within this industry. Things are happening, things are changing outside of the domains industry. For example, there's privacy laws, data laws that really affect the domains industry. For example, GDPR, which affects how data is collected and deleted when you register a domain name. So as a domain registrar or wholesaler, we have to be proactive to better react. So we know that there are different laws and regulations coming down the pipeline. As a product marketer, we know that that's going to affect our messaging, the way we present our products, and how our products will actually function. And we also want to remove the burden from our resellers. So as a wholesaler, we want to remove all the complexities and legalities of different changes that's outside beyond our control. So for example, CCPA is a new privacy law in California that's coming in January 1st. So as a product marketer, we know that when you register a domain name, it's going to affect how you register the domain name and how we collect that information. GDPR, like I mentioned, it's a new privacy law within Europe. So this really affects a lot of different things and throughout the whole channel as well. So just to recap, enablement is beyond sales, so it's both internal and external. As a wholesaler, we're the conduit between the supplier and the reseller, so it's important to connect the dots on both sides of the coin. Also shifting traditional thinking. There are certain products out there that people have this connotation that it's the standard, but you really want to surface the value of different alternatives. And lastly, some things are beyond your control, but you have to be proactive to better react. And that's it. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Anybody have any questions? Very interesting topic, one I've not really learned about in the past.
So who's your biggest competition?
He's right in the back.
Okay, it is GoDaddy?
It's GoDaddy.
Okay.
Yeah, so
Is there a second and a third if you had a few extra bullets in the gun?
yeah, so there's other ones in China as well. So for example, China, there's another domain registrar. So they have millions of domains. But right now, because the maturity of the industry, registrars are actually being swallowed up by other registrars. But we're one of the top biggest domain registrars in the world. Something I forgot to mention, we're actually the first domain wholesaler as well. So we provide domain names on a wholesale level, which obviously equals bulk, better pricing, etc. Yep.
On the section where you were talking about the additional types of domain names,
Yep.
do you find that you have to begin to market to the end user customers, or do you have to help your resellers market better to the end user customers because from the outside looking in, it's like really confusing.
Yeah.
And do you, so you talked about the two coins. I'm just wondering if maybe is there another coin on the other side of the reseller that you find yourself trying to move towards?
Yeah, so that's kind of where the consultative approach goes. So we are one step removed from the actual consumers. So we actually have to work with our resellers to understand what works for their business. So as a wholesaler, we want to provide as many different products as possible because there's a ton of different domains, and our belief is that we want to provide a breadth of products. But obviously, all products doesn't match all different markets' consumers. So we have to work with the resellers to really understand what they want to promote, and then we'll just kind of hone in on that.
You kind of answered my question,
Okay.
partially. I was just curious, when we buy domains from, say, Wix or Squarespace, the other side of building websites,
Yep.
do you have to fight with, say, GoDaddy at that level too?
So there's two sides of the domains industry. There's the wholesale side, which is the side that I'm involved with, but there's also the retail side as well. So the retail side would be like a Squarespace or a Wix. So a reseller needs to get their domains from a supplier. So we're one of the suppliers or a wholesaler. So in terms of fighting with Wix or GoDaddy, they're more like partners because we have to work with them to push certain domains. So one example of how we would work with a hosting company, for example. So when you're looking to build a website or register a domain name, chances are the domain name is probably taken. But as a product marketer, we can work with the supplier and say, hey, .nyc sounds pretty legit. Can you give us a better pricing on that? We'll go back to the reseller or the hosting company, and we say, when a consumer types in a domain name, we suggest certain domain names like .co, .whatever the case may be. We'll put .nyc at the very top. because we have worked with the supplier with better promotions and to promote that domain extension. Yeah.
Any other questions? Okay. Thank you so much, Tuan.